This is CounselCast, and I'm your host, Karin Conroy, your marketing co-counsel. In every episode, I discuss marketing topics with experts who answer your questions and help your law firm achieve next-level results. Here's today's guest.
Hi, I'm Juanita Wheeler, a presentation, pitching, and speaker coach. Stay tuned to find out how to be a great persuasive speaker as a lawyer.
Juanita, I am so excited about this one. Thank you for being here to begin with. I really appreciate you taking the time from Australia to meet with me at about 5 a.m. your time. So we're going to make this good and worth your time and all that extra effort. And I appreciate that. And thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, and you're very welcome. I was just saying, I apologize in advance. If you hear any birds in the background at any point in time, welcome to Australia. These are wild cockatoos, and they are beyond my control.
I appreciate that. Speaking of things within your control, for a nice little transition, we are going to talk about public speaking, influence, and presentation skills. In your intro, you didn't mention that you're the CEO of TEDx Brisbane. And I feel like that's the thing that, will kind of ring familiar with some people who are listening. And I think there's a real cool sort of approach that TED does in their talks that I feel like we can dig into. But the title for the episode today is The Key to Lawyer Influence, a guide to essential presentation skills. So let's first talk about something that you mentioned when we were first chatting, the different kinds of public speaking and presentations that a person or lawyer might need to make. Because I think initially everyone's picturing, like I am, the TED stage, like kind of single definition of public speaking, up on a stage, a big screen behind them and whatever. But there's a million different variations of what we're talking about. So let's first start there. What kind of examples do you have?
Well, the first thing I say to people, and it's usually after they say, oh, public speaking, I could never do that. Or glossophobia, which is the technical term for fear of public speaking.
Cool.
Experts say that it can affect up to 75% of the population. Now, obviously, that ranges from I'm a little bit more nervous than I should be, right up to abject panic and cannot do it.
Yeah, I can't even stand on my two legs.
But people will be, I could never public speak. And the thing I say to them is, if you leave your house and you speak in public, then you are already public speaking. Yes. So you are doing it every day.
Yeah.
So let's just put the fear of that aside. We can work on that. There are things we can do. And actually, let's learn how to do it well, because you're doing it whether you like the idea of that or not. So let's just learn how to do it well. So the first thing, if you're speaking in public, you are already public speaking.
Right. Even if it's like to the grocery store people 100%. Or whatever.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. But there are so many forms, as you said. So, yes, the TED stage is absolutely one, but it's one very specific form of public speaking. And you should have that toolkit in your bag. It's an important one for you as a professional, as somebody who takes themselves seriously, as somebody who wants to have a positive career trajectory. That's essential. You need that tool in your tool bag. But the other forms of public speaking are speaking persuasively to your boss, promoting yourself in negotiations for pay rises or new jobs. Yeah. If you are sitting in a meeting with partners or members of your firm and you have to advocate for your idea internally, that is a different form of public speaking. Not only the talking, but having your voice heard and knowing how to do that. Because otherwise you're just flapping your gums. There is a very big difference between talking and persuasive speaking, where people hear it and then say yes. And that's my jam. That's what I'm all about.
I saw this on your website, and that just called to me this idea of having your voice heard. And I want to keep coming back to this because there is such a huge difference between listening and hearing and speaking and being heard. So, and this is where I think a lot of messaging and marketing and positioning is where we usually start with clients, and where we talk about not just the message, but first the strategy behind the message. And the goal there obviously is to be heard, but to be heard from someone where you're meeting what they need in order to be heard. So what's the difference, and how do you first approach that idea of being heard as opposed to, let's just assume we're talking to someone who's an attorney and something's not working. And, you and I have kind of determined it's either a messaging problem or like their overall approach in the way they're speaking. So what would the first thing you would talk to them about be in terms of how to adjust that in order to be heard?
It's a great question. And a lot of times when people come to me, their first port of call is, I'm not doing something right in my presentation style. They'll think it's about my vocal modulation, or maybe I should do something more compelling with my hands. And I'm like, okay.
I need a new suit. I just need a new haircut.
or one of my favorites, which is totally wrong. I'm saying ums and ahs too many times. Can you stop me doing that? And I'm like, first of all, you need to know that is very superficial. What we actually have to look at, and you alluded to it, is, what are you trying to achieve? The first thing I will say is stop talking, stop flapping your gums until you know exactly why you're speaking. And I don't just want you to be heard. That's essential. But I want you to know what action you want them to take. Because if they are just flapping their gums, if you're just flapping their gums and they hear you but they take no action, I'm not the slightest bit interested in that. That was, that's all very nice. That's, wedding toast kind of stuff. I enjoyed that. Thank you for your contribution. I'm interested in what action do you want them to take the minute you stop speaking, or as soon as they walk out of that room and they get to their computer or their phone or their assistant? What do you want them to do? So I say to all the people I coach, particularly the people who I coach who are trying to, elevate the career trajectory, or they have some very clear goals professionally that they're looking at, maybe not now, but maybe in the future. And they understand it's never too early to start personal branding. If I want to get to that thing, I need to start now.
Yeah.
So I'll talk to them and say, what do you want? They'll say, I've got a meeting coming up. This thing has not been going well, as you say, and I really need to turn them around. I need people to hear me that there is a better solution and this is it. Yeah. We'll sit down and go, first of all, before you open your mouth, what do you want them to do when you finish talking? What is the action, a behavioral change? Sometimes people will say, I want to raise awareness about this. I'm like, you are prohibited forever from using the word awareness. Awareness gets you nothing. Like, don't ever use that in my presence again. So I usually will talk to them about skin cancer because everyone kind of gets it. And I'm like, so I can be as aware out the wazoo about skin cancer and not do a single bit of behavioral change. I'm like, awareness gets you nothing. What do you actually want? You want me to slip, slop, and slap, sunscreen, hat when I leave the house. You want me to check.
Is that an Australian thing? I've never heard that before. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
It was a PSA in like the 70s before I was
slap,
born.
And slap.
Slip on a shirt, slop on sunscreen, and slap on a hat.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
It was drilled into us from school. And
oh my gosh, that's a first for me.
Well, there you go. Slip, slop, slap. Yes, so now you're in the know. It's like you're a local.
I got it. Yes, and I will not forget that. That's amazing. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine. You always have to pick me up on the Australianisms. But yes, so I'm like, skin cancer, you want me to slip, slop, slap. Yes. You also want me to check my moles and my skin once a month for 10 minutes. That's a behavioral change. You want me to go see a doctor once every 12 months because, we're in Australia and skin cancer capital of the world. These are the things you want. They are all specific actions. So let's write that down. And, that's actually tangible. They're specific goals. You're going to move forward. You're going to make progress as opposed to, I just want to raise awareness about this issue. We don't do that. We came to play. We're serious people.
Okay, so let's use two examples, like either the website or like we're getting up maybe at like an event and doing a talk. Because I feel like these are the two things that are probably most present in a lawyer's mind. And actually probably not the website in terms of, that's more me. But what kind of actual action, that's not just like the raise awareness thing, would you be looking for in each of those examples?
That's great. So if I had the opportunity, if I was a lawyer or an attorney and I had the opportunity to go and speak, let's say at a fundraiser or an event or at an industry event, beforehand I would sit down and go, great, what are my immediate objectives and what are my long-term objectives for my career? And I would say, great, I want to own the space about international law as it relates to children's rights. You pick whatever area of law rocks your world and say, so I want to work out, regardless of what they ask me to speak on, I'll speak on that, but I'm going to make sure how I can weave in as my examples or anecdotes, the things that the area that I am passionate about.
Yeah.
I am going to work on how to get my core idea. So the equivalent of if you were giving a TED talk, what is your great idea? If you don't have it yet, great, but let's get working on that. What is that in 12 words or less? So you can clearly articulate it, and then you're going to make sure that that is littered into your talk.
I love
such that you are already establishing to that audience, and if these are, peak industry, peers, people of influence who are going to potentially help you in your career or help make you connections in the future, that they start associating with you with that area of interest, which is where you want to go. So every time you speak in public, you should be working to advance towards that objective. And it's not raising awareness that I exist or about the topic. Goodness knows that topic could be incredibly important, but let's make sure we tick multiple boxes. You are doing good for the cause. You are also doing good for whomever has invited you to speak on that stage, and making sure that you're ticking their boxes, that people have a great time, or you mention their cause, whatever you need to do. But make sure you are also ticking your boxes in terms of advancing. So maybe you want them to follow you on social media.
Sorry, should it always be kind of coming back to those 12 words that you mentioned? Like you've got this sort of mantra in your head that's, 12 words or less, and that's always being mentioned at every event, everything.
Absolutely, in some form. Once you work out what you want to do. So, some of my clients and the people I've coached who are lawyers, some of them will say, look, I just think I'm going to be in firms forever. One day I would like to be a named partner. And I'm like, well, what area of law do you want to then make sure that you own? What part of the store do you want to be the go-to expert for?
Yeah.
Whether that's family law or whether it's mergers and acquisitions, whatever it is, I'm like, great. What is the thing you are going to bring, your insight to that, your area of specialty? Let's get that into 12 words or less and make it almost like a catchphrase. So when people say, do you know XYZ? Oh, yes, she's the person who, and if you've done your job well, they will then be able to recite the 12 words or less.
Oh, that would be amazing.
They will know you as that thing. So yes, and it's never too early to start, but you also need to remember it's like a t-shirt. So if you outgrow your 12 words or less, if it no longer fits you well, if it's not fashionable anymore, if you don't like it, you can change your shirt. So you can absolutely change your 12 words or less. It is not a stone template.
But speaking of that, we were talking earlier about, okay, you've got these 12 words or less, but in different scenarios, we're going to be speaking in a different way to different audiences. So I'm going to give you a couple examples. If we're at an industry event, if we are speaking on our website, or if we have a phone call from a potential client and we're maybe, sitting down face to face with a potential client, those are three super different audiences. And with those 12 words in mind, so you've got your kind of mantra and whatever, how do you then address each of them differently to once again have the voice heard? I'm just going to keep coming back to that because I feel like that is such a key core thing that we need to remember about this episode, is this idea of being heard.
I love it. First of all, those examples you've picked are great. I'll start with the last one first because I think it's the most powerful. If you're sitting down with a client, the first thing I'll say is, if you have done your job well, then the client will be walking in because they're coming to you because of your 12 words or less. They know what you are excited about, what you are regarded now as the thought leader and expert on. And that is why they have come to your office. So your work there is done when they walk in the door to some extent. You then just need to confirm that yes. But when you do it well, you attract the right kind of clients. You attract people who want to work with you because they know what you are passionate about. So that is the goal, that you're not out there chasing them, or you're working with clients on topics that do not rock your world because you've done this so well that you are the go-to person for that.
I've seen this myself over and over and over. And I mean, I've had this agency for going on 15 plus years. And in the beginning, I was positioned, and this is actually a great example of having a different t-shirt. So in the beginning, I started out writing like really compelling blog posts about marketing on a popular blog. And this was like a classic blog back in the day. Blogs have all changed since. But back in the day, I was talking about marketing, and it was specifically aimed to lawyers. And I had ads on that blog that were all about starting in under $1,000, and it was all price based, and it was all get in. I've got your low cost option, like just pull in this vast network of new clients. And this wasn't the wrong angle. At the time, this was the right angle for someone who's starting out. But then as time went on, that wasn't the right client for me anymore. It was a very money focused, value not perceived, and nitpicky, problematic client. Let's just say it that way. So I had to change my t-shirt like you were describing. And it's a kind of a painful process because all of a sudden your numbers change. Like all of a sudden, I'm not getting those low kind of penny pincher, and it looks like something's not going right, but it is. And so then the difference is I'm not putting a chart on my website with different packages that have dollar signs on them. It's totally different. And the availability of them to get to me changed. Once I saw that change and we went through all that work to reposition and whatever, all of a sudden the flow of the type of client was amazing. And they would say things just like what you were describing. In that first call, they would be like, I have been following you for ages. I've listened to your podcast. I have seen your website. And then they would start quoting things. I need blah, 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 blah. And it would be like words from my website. And it was just like, it was like this amazing experience. But this is when you know that you're doing it right. And I'm sorry for being like getting up on my soapbox, but I've seen this and I've like experienced all of that. So let you get back to what you were describing. No, I apologize for jumping in there.
No, I think it's fine. I think it's really important. I mean, I've changed my t-shirt as well. So I spent 20 years doing strategic planning, strategic market development, negotiating mergers and acquisitions. Very, very good at it, if I say so myself. But it was no longer filling my life with joy. So the part of my work that I loved was after realizing it didn't matter what kind of amazing plan I put together and what kind of strategy, if the person couldn't get up on stage and sell it, either to their team, to their boss, to partners, to entire organizations, then it didn't matter how good it was on paper. You need to be able to sell it and champion your ideas. If you care about your ideas, you need to be prepared to step up and champion them in a persuasive way and to invest the time and effort to learn how to do that based on persuasion theories and neuroscience and all the smart stuff.
I love that. And one other thing I just want to add in really quickly that I loved from your site is we're talking about you getting a yes on whatever your idea is. And you say this on like the front page of your website. So this is like very broad. And this is about kind of human psychology and interaction and trying to get to that yes on whatever it is you're talking about, whatever idea, whatever court case, whatever you're in front of a judge, if you are talking about your marketing. So let's go back to before I interrupted on that whole story of my life. We were talking about the different kinds of audiences and how to kind of be better heard and persuasive to get to that yes where it's so compelling.
Yes. And so we talked about, you're getting the right clients coming to the room. The other example you mentioned was on the website. So if you are at the point where you've said, okay, this is what I'm going to focus on. This is what I want to own this part of the store. I want to be an expert and a thought leader in this space. Then on your website, first of all, in addition to your general services, you will have dedicated landing pages that is easy to access from your homepage that will talk about that one niche area of specialty. You will talk about why you're passionate about it, why you are fantastic at it. This is not a time to be shy about that, by the way, or, you're awesome, own it. And
if you can't, you need to hire someone that will own it for you and put those words together. Yep. Because a lot of people just can't. Let's just own that part. And I had to own that. And I have amazing content writers who say things in a way where I'm like, that is so much better than I would have ever said about myself. This is amazing. Let's like step back from that too. You don't have to possess this. There's no ego involved in you getting it done the way it needs to be done, whether it's you or someone else.
Absolutely. Can I say that don't feel bad if you're not a marketer, if you're a lawyer, because marketers are terrible at marketing themselves. I mean, I was the director of global marketing and market development. I have 3 master's degrees, including 2 in business, and I need somebody else to write my stuff because I will downplay. I will be, be smaller, take up less space, don't be bossy.
Yeah.
And someone needs to come in and go, honey, you got
You're
3
bossy.
master's degrees and 20 years of experience, and you've coached over 100 TEDx speakers. Maybe we should
You're
stick
the boss.
this on the homepage. Like, oh. So, yes, get an expert. Just like, and I say the same thing. I often talk about plumbing, and I'll say, look, public speaking and marketing, this is a skill, like being a plumber or being a lawyer. If you need a lawyer, don't do it yourself. Go to a lawyer.
Right.
If you need a plumber to plumb your house, go get a plumber. And
for all the
and
same
public
reasons
speaking,
you as a lawyer are telling your clients not to do it yourself, the same thing applies to you. Apply that to your business. And for all the same reasons that you were saying to your clients, oh my gosh, if you have a DUI or you're going through a divorce, the worst thing you can do is do it yourself. So let's take that concept. You've already got it in your head. You're saying it to other people. Now just flip it around on yourself.
100%. Don't confuse my law degree with Google. Similarly, don't confuse, your marketing experience, my 20 years of public speaking experience and 3 master's degrees with Google.
Or ChatGPT.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That's a whole episode unto itself.
Yeah.
ChatGPT, great for giving you suggestions at the high level of what kind of things might I cover in this as bullet point topics. Do not let it write your words. Do not ever. So much important part of your personal brand. And that's what you're talking about establishing here, whether it's to attract clients, whether it's to have your future career trajectory, all of that should be in your words. It should be authentically you, and no one, don't hand that over to a computer and a piece of AI. It should be you. Own it.
Yes. Okay. So coming back to, because I love that. And I did want to throw one little mention of AI just because it's the topic, but I did want to throw in ChatGPT at some point. So I'm glad I got to check that box. We covered that. Yes. But let's go back to, okay. So what does it mean to be persuasive? What and how? How do we do that? And what is it?
Being persuasive, it's the difference between, and I love that you mentioned, about getting to yes. Being persuasive means somebody says yes. So when I say at the beginning when we were talking about, what's your strategic objective for this meeting or this speech or this meeting with your boss or this
your website
meeting with your website prospective clients. Anytime for me, you're speaking usually vocally, but it could be on your website. What is your strategic objective? And it should, if I can't answer yes, or someone can't answer yes to what your strategic objective is, as far as I'm concerned, it's not a strategic objective. Is it that you're saying, let's go big. I want you to change this piece of legislation. I want you to lobby to change this piece of legislation. Will you do it? Yes. Okay, that's a strategic objective. I want you to take me on as a client. Become my client. Yes. I want us to do a merger deal and merge our firms. Yes. Whatever it is, there needs to be a yes, and it needs to involve behavioral change and action. So that's the first step. Persuasion is making somebody say yes who at the start of a meeting possibly doesn't want to. Yeah. Either they don't know anything about what you're going to pitch to them, or maybe sometimes they are diametrically opposed to it and you've got to turn them around. So that's what persuasion is about. The key to persuasion, there's a lot of work that goes into persuasion.
Many books.
many books, many years of study, the neuroeconomics, the science of decision making. But if I had to, was pushed to condense it, I would say
it's a short podcast.
I would say, look, the key to persuasion is understanding what is the yes question. What is the strategic objective that involves at the end them saying yes? Because that's the first point. Otherwise, how do you know if it's a success or not? So one clear yes. Not 27, one for each meeting or each session. The second thing is understand where are they currently? Where do you think they currently are? And we're going to call that point A. And point B is getting them to the point where they say yes. What do they need to hear? Not what you think is sexy, exciting, or interesting or verbose about yourself.
Or the fact that you went to a certain law school or whatever. Please stop. That's not
can
it.
I just say... The only time you would ever mention that if you knew that the person you were speaking to prized that above all other things.
It's super important to them. Yeah.
If that is their life, that is where they went to school.
Yeah.
And, everybody they hire in their firm is from there and everyone they do business. If that is their be all and end all, or you get on a Zoom call with them and there's merch from their thing, I'm like, cool, totally going to drop that. But seriously, it's happened.
I had such a visual of that, horns comes from whatever that school in Texas. Oh my gosh, that hit me so funny. Yes. That's hilarious.
Yeah. It stuck with me since I saw it the first time in real life. But the point is, what will get that person? What will get them from A to B? So you've got to think about I sit before a meeting with somebody and I will write down a list of every objection I think they would have to my idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll put that in a column and then I'll put immediately next to it, what are the answers to that? So before they can even get that out of their mouth or into their mind, that's a problem. I'm going to make sure I address these things.
I love that. That's so good.
I'm like mentally ticking them off, and so then it would be almost embarrassing for them to raise one of them because you've said why. Oh, look, I totally understand. This is a really common misconception. I'm dealing this with all these other people, but I know you would get it because you're in the industry that that's not how it works, and blah blah blah, and all these kind of things that elevate them and address every possible objection you can think of.
Yes.
Prior to them actually getting the point. So what's important to them? So to give you an example, I had to pitch a professional development thing. I go into companies. They bring me in to teach them how to be better communicators for internally or externally. Yeah. And so this one was about increasing women's voices being heard in their particular organization because
awesome.
It was a guy that brought me in too. Loved some of the best feminists I know are men. It's like we need to elevate women in the organization. Like superb.
Yeah.
But he goes, I need you to sell it to this person who's head of professional development and this person who's the CFO. And I had to do it in 2 separate meetings, which was ideal for me.
Annoying.
No.
Okay.
Oh, when that happens, it's the best thing ever. If they're two totally different types of people, you're like, of course I can do that.
Nice.
So the pitch to the professional development woman, she was very in favor of ensuring women's equality. I had, lovingly, lightly, and not illegally at all stalked her on LinkedIn and found out all the things she was passionate about because I do my work. I'm going to persuade her. I have to take her from A to B. What does she need to hear? And she just needed to hear all the things about, the gender differential, the pay inequity, all of those things. Totally nailed that one. And she's like, of course, yes. And then I went to the one, and it was for the same deal, and I pitched to the CFO, and that was all about the cost of retention, the cost of retraining people.
Yeah, so it's a totally different presentation.
It was 100%. You wouldn't have known it was for the same thing until you got to the final decision. Oh my gosh, that's
so interesting.
But because that's what that person needed to hear to get him from A to B. He was the bean counter. He just cared about money. I looked at some of the things he had done, some of the places he had spoken, all of his accounting details. He just wanted to hear this is going to save money and it's going to save drama and it's going to increase efficiency, which I could absolutely prove with completely different stats, 2 entirely different presentations. That presentation did not have big smiley faces of people in the workplace. This one did. This one was like, here are the spreadsheets, here are the numbers, here are big graphs with, this is why this is going to boost your numbers.
Totally.
I got yes from both. Entirely different
That's amazing.
presentations because when you are talking about persuasive speaking, it's not about you. It's not about what you think is interesting.
Okay, so let me just go back because I want to enforce this really major point here. When we're talking about persuasion and messaging and all of this, you're talking about how it's not about you. So it's not about trying to convey this idea. What is it?
It's such a vital point, and it's one of the first things I say to all my speakers, particularly people who are nervous. It's like public speaking is not about you. It's about the people you're speaking to. It's about what they need to hear to get them to yes, to have them understand and be persuaded by you. So that's all about them. And it's not about you. So I always apologize. I say, look, I'm sorry to the narcissists in the room, but, public speaking, not about you. Certainly not persuasive speaking. Wedding toast, sure. But persuasive speaking, not about you. So in the instance of those 2 very different presentations, one to the head of professional development and one to the CFO, those presentations were entirely different. And they weren't about me. They weren't about the exciting things that I wanted to talk to them about. It was about what does that person need to hear to get them to say yes. And in the case of this person, she needed to hear that it aligned with her values, her objectives, her KPIs that had to do with elevating the voices of women, making sure that they had better gender equality in their organization at all levels of the organization and not just in accounting and admin. And his KPIs and the things he was concerned about and passionate about and the things that his values spoke to was dollars and graphs. How do I reduce the cost of employment, retention, recruitment, training, and increase our efficiencies? So it was not about what I wanted to tell them at all. It was all about them.
And let me just underline that, because what you're describing is market research and like defining your client profile, or sometimes people call it like your user, or, there's a bunch of different, like, people use the word journey a lot when they get to this stuff, but let's just say market research, because I feel like that sounds better. But what you're saying, and even when you were talking about how you were stalking them on LinkedIn, market research, you're going in to speak to these two people. And without doing that research, you would have thrown together some generic thing, slapped it together, showed up and said probably the same thing to each of them, thinking this is the truth. This is what I'm trying to say. But without that fine tuning of the message to each of their needs and wants, this is what we're talking about when it comes to being persuasive and understanding what they want, as opposed to just what you're sort of thinking you want to say. And so in our cases, when we sit down and we're doing a whole strategy and like putting that stuff together, figuring out the positioning, a lot of times the outcome of that is a message. But to figure out that message, it's a lot of research and talking about who your clients are, what they have said about you in the past. It's the equivalent of the LinkedIn research that you were doing to figure out, like, let me know about these people. So you should be looking into, who are your clients? What have they said about you in the past? Why did they find you in the past and then hire you? And what do they want? What do they care about? You know this when they first come in and meet with you. You know exactly the first, like, couple things that they say to you all the time, over and over. This is where we're going to position it and fine tune it to speak to that.
Absolutely. And if you're going home at night, I would say, in addition to all of that, which I agree with, if you're going home at night and thinking, these are not the cases I want to be working on, these clients are not rocking my world, this is not where I want to be working, this is not why I got into law, or this is not what I want to be doing in 5 years, great. Write down what you do want to be working on, and then say, what do I have to do to position myself as the go-to person for that, as an expert in that? And some of that might be, I need to go and get a couple of extra, credentials, but also it could be, I just need to start speaking about this. I need to subscribe to Google alerts for every possible update on this topic. So if there is something that happens in this space, I know. And then I need to speak about it, because it doesn't matter what you got in your head if you are not out there letting people know that. So in team meetings, in staff meetings, in elevator conversations with, the name partners, whoever it is, you need to let them know that you know this. And then you need to get yourself out there and start speaking. What are the peak industry bodies or organizations, nonprofits, that are government entities that are involved in this space? You need to start speaking at their events so they understand you are a player in this space.
And what you're describing sounds like a ton of work, because it is. So maybe the answer is, I came home last night and I'm miserable and my life is suffering because I'm not on the path that I expected. And maybe the answer is, you know what that path is. You need to at least have some concept of what it is you want it to be. But you don't know how to get there. Maybe you need to be realistic about the fact that you need help getting there. And so, let's just say, okay, that sounds like a lot of work. I don't know how to get those speaking gigs. I don't know how to do all that writing. I don't know how to define where those clients are, put ads in front of them. I don't know how to write the website, do the social media. So hello, let's just go find the right person to help you with that, which is going to get you there faster and probably at a much higher rate of success.
Absolutely. You're going to be more successful. But the other thing is, I'm not a fan of work when it's not required. Don't make things harder than they need to be.
I do not change my own oil in my car.
No, I do not.
Why would I do that?
I don't represent myself in court ever. I'm not drafting my own legal contracts. It's far less work if you have the right person and the expert helping you. The exact same thing that you would feel about your clients. Do it once, do it well, get help from an expert, and we're going to make this as short, swift, and painless as possible for them. That's exactly what you and I do for our clients.
One thing that you were talking about earlier when you were saying about the objections and the questions people ask, I just wanted to add one note about that. That should be on your website in terms of the frequently asked questions. That is the point of frequently asked questions. Google wants that, and so do your clients. So the frequently asked questions are not really, it's not for anything else. That's what it's for. It's for overcoming these objections. So once you've got that, write that down, send it to your webmaster, and have them throw that on the website as well. And then the other thing I wanted to come back and kind of tie in, and I feel like it's been an underlying idea that we've been talking about, is trust. So trust combined with influence. How is that different, and how does that tie into the idea of getting to that yes? Or how do you build that foundation in order to help with the influence and getting to the yes?
I love that question. It was something that I had to deal with when I left corporate 11 years ago and decided to go out on my own. And one of the big questions we had when we were discussing, for example, how to brand my company was, how do you build this trust if you've not been out and you're just going out and establishing yourself for the first time outside of corporate world where you're, part of a big juggernaut. And, we said, well, let's be authentically us. Let's be, what are we and what am I? And we said, okay, well, you're authoritative, you're sincere, and you're blunt. And we said, okay, these are the three guiding principles, because if I am always those things and I'm authentically me, first of all, that will build trust. Yep. So work out, first of all, whatever it is you're going to own your part of the store, you want to be authoritative. So you need to make sure that you are. So whatever you need to do, that will build trust. If people know if this is something that needs to be known, she or he will know it. That is how you do it. And they won't know what's in your head unless you are out there speaking about it or writing about it or having it in your website. So you need to make sure that you are commentating on things that are topical and new and in the news, so they know if something's happening in this space, that person will know about it. So that builds trust.
That's who the person is.
In terms of being sincere, that was my second one for our brand. And do what you say and say what you do. If I tell you you need to know something or you don't need to know something, I always say to my clients, I will teach you everything you need to know and nothing that you don't. So if I'm not telling you, I'm not going to flash this out. If I'm not telling you need to know something, you don't need to know it. You don't need to Google it. Don't listen to your aunt's best friend's brother's boyfriend who tells you that you need to do something dramatic with your arms on stage. Like, please ignore that. Oh my gosh, from your year 12 speech and drama class or glee club. Okay, let's just put a pin in that.
All of a sudden people are like twirling around.
They come to rehearsals and I'm like, do that again and you will not walk onto my stage. And I am not kidding.
I'm picturing a giant hook.
I'm like, seriously, you won't walk on stage. And they know I'm serious. They can tell by my face. But, so that's mine. So live up to whatever your brand is. Be that. So one of mine is sincere. I will absolutely tell you what you need to know. I want you to succeed. People's success is the reason I do what I do. That's how I am contributing to the world. I am not a top surgeon, a top human rights lawyer. Like, I'm none of those things. But what I am is I'm helping all of these people who have brilliant ideas to champion them to the world. So every time they go out and something happens because they have spoken about it, they've presented well, they've had the confidence to get up and champion it, and they have wins, well, I help make that happen. So that's how I contribute to the world. So sincere is one of mine, and that builds trust. Yeah. And whatever you are, however you deliver your services, that's part of your brand, how people feel. Yeah. So mine is, comprehensive but blunt. So I will be very blunt, and that in itself builds trust. People know if I will be blunt. I'm not going to tell them or namby-pamby or, there's not going to be this. I don't have that tool in my toolbox,
That's why we get along, I feel like, that, because I could not, I tell people from the beginning, they're like, okay, if we are making bad decisions, and I'm like, you need to tell us. And I'm like, I don't have it within me to not tell you. And I will tell you, you will know for sure that I don't agree. But I will also tell you why. It's not just like I'm having a bad day and I just have a bad feeling about it. I will say the reason that this is not the right decision is XYZ. And then you get to make the decision, because this is your business and your law firm and your decision, but you will know full well that I am not on board with it.
Absolutely. And, part of that also in that trust factor is I will never just tell you yes or no to something. I will explain why, as you said, that also is providing them with power and agency and knowledge for future.
Yeah.
So they don't have to call you every time. There's a growing pool of knowledge they have. They will call you in for the new big things, the important things, the critical things. But you are constantly helping them develop skills and knowledge so they can do the everyday business as usual things without needing to have you on the end of the phone, which is a huge win for them. So all of that is trust.
All right. I love that. Trust, influence, all of these things are critical parts when you're doing any kind of public speaking presentation, all the things that fall under this broad umbrella of just communication. So it is now time for the Thought Leaders Library. We have a book review section of every episode where the guests provide a suggestion for a book that you think should be on everyone's bookshelf. So, Juanita, what is the one that you think all the lawyers should be paying attention to in your... I'm butchering this description and I apologize for it, but what's the book that you like?
This is the book that I think particularly every lawyer should have on their bookshelf if they don't already, assuming that you don't all want to go and nerd out and spend 10 years reading about the neuroeconomics of persuasion theories. It's this one. It's called Hidden Persuasion. It is fantastic.
Such a cool cover.
I know. And the actual whole book is really fantastic too. And it is, bite-sized chunks of persuasion theory, and it'll go through and it'll introduce you to some of the many persuasion theories. It will tell you the theory behind it. It will explain, give some context. It'll explain how it works. It's a really lovely, coffee table, bite-sized book that you can read. I feel like
that is a beautiful marriage, persuasion between marketing and being a lawyer too. This whole idea of, we have these things that we need to say, and we want people, like you were saying earlier and on your website, we need a yes, whatever that is. If it's a yes on a jury vote, if it's a marketing yes for a potential client, if it's just a yes to whatever you're speaking about in whatever it is, that's the goal. And so marketing will get you there. And this idea of persuasion and these theories will help you understand how to do it better. Okay. So we'll link to that book, Hidden Persuasion by Mark Andrews, on the show page, as well as a nice little screenshot of the cover because we mentioned it and it's really cool.
It is very cool. And it's a great book. By the way, you'll start using it for law and for your legal work and also your business. But before you know it, for the parents out there, you're just going to go, oh my gosh, this is gold. I have 3 adult 20-something sons. And yes, it's absolute gold.
I will tell you that in the reverse, all of the parenting books that I read, I use in business all the time, speaking to my clients. And like either way, it goes both ways. But business books apply to parenting books apply to business. And it's just about like human interaction and psychology and how to do it better. In a way that works.
A good persuasion theory will apply in all aspects of your life. That's how you know it's a good one.
That's awesome. And speaking of what works, first let's talk about what you think everyone gets wrong about this. And then, what your thoughts on a solution to that potential mistake or misstep would be.
I think we've talked about it a little today already, is the biggest mistake that all public speakers or a lot of people that I engage with do is they think public speaking is about them.
Yeah.
They think it's about, I'm going to get up on a stage or at a work presentation or pitching to my boss for a pay rise, whatever it is. And I'm going to talk about the things I want to talk about why it's important to me, about why I think someone should do things, about why this is interesting or sexy or exciting. And they will spend all this time thinking about, cool, I've got this great idea and it's, and that's what they'll focus on, and that's how they perceive public speaking. And that is an enormous mistake if you are in any form of public speaking, but particularly if you're looking to be involved in strategic persuasive speaking, which gets somebody to yes, because it's not about you. And so the solution is, know who you are speaking to and make sure that you know what their starting point is. Like, I think this is where they are. Their point A, your point B is you got to get them to yes. So have that really clear strategic goal of what they're saying yes to. So they know what it is and you know what it is. And then make sure everything that you include in what you say, you are not flapping your gums. There's no tangential stuff. There's no waffle. It's 100% what that person needs to hear to say yes.
Yeah. And then, it's so, so important and true. And I feel like you laid that out in such a succinct way. And then the result is that it's all of a sudden so easy. Like you've got everything set up so well, and you're getting like quality people who all of a sudden you're like, wow, I haven't had a single conversation with someone where I walked away wanting to like bang my head against a wall. And that was probably for both of us. I know for me, for sure, in the first few years when I had the other t-shirt on, it was regularly like, why is this so difficult? And I'm going to write a blog post about this and I'm going to change the world with my blog post. No. That's not the way to do it. Take from my experience. Nope.
That's
not
venting.
How it's going to work.
That's called venting. Exactly. Stick it in a journal and never share it anywhere.
Yes. There are some examples that I'll use in like these episodes or when I'm talking to other people, but just kind of as examples of kind of what you were describing of what people get wrong or mistakes or whatever. And, I obviously don't kind of keep it all kind of quiet about who that was and when that was and all that. And that's not what works. Like that's not going to be the approach that gets you where you want to be in life, in your career, whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. I think that's so true. I love that succinct kind of finale of how it works and how to make it work better. So Juanita Wheeler is the founder of Full and Frank and also the CEO of TEDx Brisbane. Thank you so much. This was such a fun conversation. Thank you for being here.
You're very welcome. It was lovely talking to you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the CounselCast podcast. Be sure to visit our website at counsel-cast.com for the resources mentioned on the episode and to give us your feedback. If you enjoyed this episode, I would appreciate if you could rate and review the podcast on Apple and subscribe to your favorite podcast platform. See you on the next one.